Hi guys! It's been about a year since I've been in school, and during that time I've sort of been trying to figure out how to transition into this new, I guess, adult world. Obviously I was an adult in school, and a lot of people continue to study throughout their 20s. When I say adult, I just mean kind of the adult routine, the routine that you're going to establish, and you're most likely going to be kind of living like that for the rest of your life. So basically the majority of adulthood. As I'm approaching this topic, I know that you guys are pretty all over the map as far as where you are in your life journey, so hopefully the way this turns out is something that can be helpful for everybody, something that people can either relate to, or for you guys who are still students and who are still approaching the adult life, hopefully this is something that can kind of prepare you and give you something to look forward to. Because honestly, I'm going to talk about the difficult parts of the transition, and it's not going to be sugar-coated or anything, but it's not something that you should be afraid of. So the first big difference between student life and adult life is the lack of structure when you hit adult life. When you're in school, you have these typical patterns that everybody follows. So when you're in high school, obviously things are pretty well structured for you. You kind of have to do what you're told and the same classes that you have to take. When you hit college, you have a little more power over that. You get to choose your major, you get to choose your classes to some extent. There are still things that you have to take for every major, and there are still sort of guidelines you have to choose for your other classes. Even so, life sort of has the same patterns. When you hit adult life, however, everything's completely different. First of all, you'll notice that you and your friends, regardless of whether you studied the exact same things in college and had the exact same plans and everything, you're going to be doing different things. You're going to get different opportunities, even if you had equal grades and you were in all the same classes and into all the same things. You're also going to be around and work with people who are of very different ages and have very different backgrounds. Overall, there's just not as much structure as there is in school, and there's not as many things that you can take for granted and just assume are going to be a certain way. Of course, that's good and bad. That means sometimes you have more freedom to do certain things and you can sort of take your life in the direction that you really actually want it to go, but at the same time, it does also require you to think a lot more about things that you didn't even have to think about before. The second big difference is that school holidays and that calendar that you've grown up with and grown to love so much, it's gone. There are no more summer breaks, there's no assumption of a spring break or a fall break some people are starting to get. This seems like a little thing, or at least an obvious thing, but when you actually roll into that and are forced to actually start living that, it's a lot more surprising. This applies especially if you still have friends or people you're really close with who are still in school, because they're going to be talking about their normal, typical things, and you're going to realize, I can't actually plan for that. I can't actually plan to go on that mini vacation that I wanted to go on when I wanted to, because I actually don't get off work. It also can be more flexible in some ways depending on the type of job that you have, because maybe you'll get other days off and you don't have to fight those crowds on the school holidays. That's actually one of the things I enjoy the most. The third thing you have to adjust to is the fact that you have a lot more responsibilities and at the same time a lot more control over your life. When you're a student and you're still a minor, you don't have to worry about things like bills, insurance, and groceries and things like that. When you transition to adulthood, and this sometimes for some people happens partially when they're still in student life, but it hits you a lot harder once you're out of it. You have the responsibilities of doing all those things, you have the responsibilities of making those choices, but you also have the control that comes with them. It comes with a lot of responsibility. You have to keep track of things that you never had to. You have a lot of your time spent doing things that are really not fun that you didn't realize you have to do. For example, you have a problem with your computer or with your cell phone, you have to go and call tech support and be on the phone with them forever and try to wrestle through all of that. Laundry, car problems, all this is extremely overwhelming, and I'm not going to say it's fun because a lot of it isn't fun, but there's a sense of accomplishment in making those decisions for yourself and being responsible for those things. And number 4, you have a lot fewer instructions in adult life, and you have a lot fewer people encouraging you to dream. When you're a student, even if you do have a lot of responsibilities, even if you're at university, when a lot of that stuff is your responsibility to keep track of, you still always have that option of talking to the professor, asking them questions. You have career counseling and lots of counseling in general, because people know that you're trying to make that transition and that you have a lot to learn still. When you hit adult life, you still have a lot to learn, especially right at the beginning. A lot. But it doesn't exactly come with an instruction manual, and despite the fact that you do have a lot of people still that you can ask for help, it's not obvious. For example, with the little life things, you know, like car troubles and computer troubles and stuff like that, you have your parents usually, sometimes you'll have a friend, you've got siblings, you have a lot of people that you can ask for help. However, you do have to actually seek those people out, you do have to pick up the phone and call them, you have to specifically go after them and ask them. Whereas when you're a student, if you're confused about an assignment, you turn to your left or you turn to your right and you ask somebody sitting next next to you, or you raise your hand and you ask the instructor. It's a lot more convenient, I guess is the word that I'm sort of going for with that. Also, when you hit adult life, you still have a lot to learn and you still have a lot to accomplish, yet there are still fewer people who are encouraging you to think big. If you're really lucky, you're gonna get some good coworkers, you're gonna get a great boss, but it's still just not the same as when you're a student. The thing that I just constantly keep trying to remind myself, and that I encourage you guys to remind yourself as well, is that you always have potential to grow, and there is always another step that you can be taking. You don't have to be unrealistic, you don't have to be constantly taking chances and sort of throwing your hopes to the wind and hoping it takes you in a good direction. But if there are things that you want to do, if there are things that you want to learn, and I hope that there are, you still have time to do those. You have the rest of your life to do those. And that leads me into the fifth point and the last thing that I'm going to talk about in this video, and that's when you get to adult life, the type of learning that you do is very different. It's not structured, it's not given to you in a textbook or a syllabus. It's absolutely something that you will be drawing from multiple different sources. That can be your job, that can be your hobby. However, you can start this a lot earlier. As a student, if you have a lot of things that you like to do on the side, if you do a lot of like Google searching about things that you want to learn about, instead of only focusing on and only learning the things that you have in your classes, you're already practicing the skill. So it's not something that's only applicable to adult life as opposed to student life. You have the option when you're a student to either start working on those skills and to also be pursuing other things, or just to kind of go with the regular schedule of, you know, classes and then other things and studying and classes and other things and studying, etc., etc. When you're an adult, you really don't have a choice. You kind of have to make your own decisions and become responsible for what you're going to learn. And I find that really exciting, actually. So there you go. There are the 5 things that I've found probably the most difficult or surprising. I'm curious now to hear from you guys. I'm curious maybe where you are in this transition, or what you think about it, or just any of your thoughts. Spew them below in the comments. This is going to be my last video for a couple of weeks because I'm going to be on vacation in France. When I get Wi-Fi, I'll be tweeting and definitely Instagramming pictures, so make sure you follow me those places if you want to keep in touch. As always, thank you guys all so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video soon.